Okay. Hello? Can you hear me now? Is this okay? How do I turn it up?
They have to do it. Okay. Turn it up. Test, test. How about that? There we go. Can you test
All right, can you hear this?
Awesome, good
Yes?
deal.
Okay. Well, now we're about ready to get started.
Thank you.
Welcome again to the What's New in ArcGIS Enterprise session. We are so excited to share with you all some of our awesome new features and capabilities. My name is Jordan Huey, and I work on ArcGIS Enterprise documentation, and I'm joined today by John.
Hi all, my name is John Emch. I'm the product advocacy lead for ArcGIS Enterprise out of Esri Technical Support. As we go through this presentation, please utilize our Pigeonhole app for any questions that you may have. We'll be accepting questions there and moderating them as the presentation goes on, so feel free to drop your questions there. We will be able to answer them at the end of this presentation.
All right, so before we get into what's new, we did want to briefly answer the question, what is ArcGIS Enterprise? ArcGIS Enterprise is the foundational system for mapping and visualization, data management, spatial analysis, and application building. It's installed on infrastructure that you control, whether that be in the cloud or on premises, and it is scalable to meet your needs. You can integrate it with ArcGIS Pro, ArcGIS Online, as well as with Esri's suite of applications. So we will be covering what is new at 11.1 today. Some highlights include custom data feeds, which we have a great demonstration for you on, feature service webhooks, which are fully supported at this release. We're going to talk about the .NET 6 web adapter, and we're also going to cover ArcMap-based service runtime removal. So our most recent two releases were 11.0 and 11.1. 11.0 was a short-term support release that was released back in July of 2022, and 11.1 is our most recent long-term support release, which was released a few months back in April. We will be our 11.2 will be our next release, and if you have any questions about what to expect in 11.2 or just any questions about the future of ArcGIS Enterprise in general, we encourage you to attend the Road Ahead session that will be on Thursday. All right, so let's get into it, starting with updates to the ArcGIS Enterprise portal. So when you are browsing for content in your organization, you can now quickly preview a feature's sublayers and tables to see a list of any associated fields. The preview window also offers options for working with the sublayers and tables. So this will be a great way for you to quickly get some information on a feature layer without having to go into the item details page and disrupt your content browsing. In Map Viewer, when you are working with heat maps, you can adjust the Soften Edges slider to increase or decrease the sharpness of its edges. And if you change the zoom level, you can regenerate the heat map for the current map extent. You are now also able to configure animation properties such as animation duration and repeat delay time when using animated symbols authored in ArcGIS Pro. Continuing with some Map Viewer updates, you can manually add categories for values that do not yet exist in your data. So when a field in the data is updated to match a value that you have specified, the styling for that feature will automatically update. You are now also able to configure settings for multidimensional imagery layers to display specific data slices in your map. There are two new smart mapping styles available in Map Viewer that allow you to visualize categorical numeric data as a pie chart. So you can use the chart style to compare categories in a single feature, and the charts and size style to compare categories in a single feature, as well as the sum of the categories in each feature. You are now also able to configure pie charts to visualize data. So pie charts are joining bar charts, line charts, histograms, and scatter plots in charts you can configure from Map Viewer. All right, so Map Viewer has a new ArcGIS Arcade editor that comes with several enhancements. These include having more space to write your expression. If you need more information on a function, you are provided with more detailed help and examples. There was also significant effort put into improving the expression window to help you write better expressions and to write them faster, as well as to better understand any errors when they do happen. New aggregation options have been added to Map Viewer, so there is now a binning option to aggregate point features into summary polygons, and some new clustering options, including the ability to override the cluster symbol and configure pie chart clusters. All right, so we're going to get into a little demo so we can see what the new aggregation pane looks like. All right. So if your map has a layer with a large number of points, like this one does, you can choose to aggregate your data to help extract some meaningful information from it. In Map Viewer, we have clustering and binning options for you. So let's navigate to the aggregation pane, which used to be called the clustering pane. You now have options for clustering, clustering chart, and binning. The clustering option may look familiar to you, but you now have the option to override the cluster symbol. Clusters inherit style options that you have configured for a layer, so turning on the override cluster symbol toggle will allow you to style the cluster separately, which can help differentiate clusters from unclustered features in the same layer. The clustering chart option is new, and it will aggregate categorized points into pie chart cluster symbols. Chart clustering is only available if the layer is styled by types unique symbols, types in size, or counts and amounts using classification. So here you have options to add or update fields. You can customize the labels, and you can also configure your pop-ups. You can adjust the shape from more of a pie to a donut shape if you would like. You can adjust the cluster radius to change the number of features grouped together in a cluster. And you can also adjust the size range of the cluster symbols. Binning is also new to Map Viewer, which aggregates features into summary polygons. So a single polygon called a bin represents all features within its boundaries. Bins are of equal area and size and appear wherever at least one feature lies within it. So again, here we can add and update the fields. We can enable the labels. And we can also configure pop-ups from here. You can adjust the bin size. And you can also edit the bin style. All right, so now that we have a better idea of what the aggregation pane looks like, I'm going to return to some scene viewer updates. All right. So you can use the daylight and weather tools to enhance your scene. With the daylight tool, you can now improve the lighting in your scene, and with the weather tool, you can add weather effects such as snow, rain, fog, or clouds. You can also add GeoJSON and CSV layers directly to your scene now. We're going to wrap up this section with a couple more scene viewer updates. You can use the line of sight tool to perform 3D visibility analysis from an observer to multiple target points. The green lines are the visible part that the observer can see, and the red lines are the occluded parts. You can also use the dimensions tool to add dimensions to your scenes. So you can group these dimensions into themes with different colors and sizes to customize the visualization.
All right, Jordan, thank you so much. Let's take a minute here to talk about some updates being made to ArcGIS Enterprise administration. And we do have a bunch here. So let's start with member categories. So we understand that organizations are very much not flat and that they require users to be able to understand how they are laid out within the scope of ArcGIS Enterprise. Member categories enable administrators to better organize their ArcGIS Enterprise organizations to match their real organizational structure. To support this feature, a new administrative privilege, manager categories, was added to support admins in managing this function. This is a common theme with these updates at 11.1. We've added a lot of features and abilities to discreetly turn on and off privileges for users to help administrators decentralize their work. Searching ArcGIS Enterprise content will now take into consideration the synonyms and other related terms when conducting the search. When you enter water, features that include river, ocean, and pond will be returned in the search. Sharing member content with organization and sharing member content with public were added to manage content across ArcGIS Enterprise, essentially making all content shareable by users who have those two privileges turned on. Error correction when bulk importing new members into ArcGIS Enterprise, that experience has been improved. And also, we introduced this new portal homepage editor a while back, and we've now added the ability to show or choose how much of the homepage is actually taken up by the cover photo. We now enable the full image as we have the full page to be taken up by the cover photo, 2/3 or half the page. Let's switch gears and talk about webhooks. So ArcGIS Enterprise 11.0, we introduced the ability to support feature service webhooks as a beta. At 11.1, we now fully support this feature. Webhooks, simply put, are automated messages sent out from apps when something happens. These messages can be used in conjunction with receivers like Microsoft's Power Automate to process events and respond with an action. At ArcGIS Enterprise 11, create, read, update, and delete events occurring in feature services can trigger a webhook response. This looks something like that. This can be helpful for data managers who may want to automate a change log, for example, for a feature service. At this time, only archived feature services are supported, not versioned. But why stop there? We've also introduced the ability to set up geoprocessing service webhooks, and these are triggered when the job status is done. A done state includes job success, job fail, and job canceled. At this point in time, only asynchronous jobs are supported for geoprocessing service webhooks. Let's talk a little bit about the ArcMap-based service runtime. So ever since 10.9.1, the writing has kind of been on the wall for the removal of the ArcMap-based service runtime. It was the last time we supported the ArcMap-based service runtime, and we've been talking about how this change will affect our users. So, in anticipation for users upgrading to ArcGIS Enterprise 11.1, which is a long-term support release from ArcGIS 10.9.1, the upgrade process includes a fully fleshed out process to identify, convert, and report on feature services that use the ArcMap-based service runtime. Any services that cannot be migrated to the ArcGIS Pro-based service runtime, so think anything that uses SOEs, SOIs, geoprocessing services, really anything that uses Python 2.7, will show a stop state after the upgrade is complete and will need to be republished manually to use again. To further assist our users in understanding what implications this has post-upgrade, we have also included the ArcMap Service Check tool, which is a command line based utility that will list all the services that were present within the upgrade process and show you which ones have been successfully transferred to the ArcGIS Pro-based service runtime and which ones may still need to be worked on after the upgrade process completes. Capping this section off, I'd like to briefly talk about ArcGIS Data Store and ArcGIS Web Adapter. The Data Store configuration wizard can be used to configure a single machine object store. An object store is typically used with ArcGIS knowledge or sorry, not ArcGIS knowledge, is typically used with query features for certain types of data. The configure data utility should be used to configure object stores on multiple machines. And the ArcGIS Web Adapter from Microsoft IIS now uses the new .NET 6 instead of .NET Framework. Before trying to install the Web Adapter at .NET 6, please make sure .NET 6 is installed on the machine that will host ArcGIS Web Adapter. I'm going to kick it back over here to Jordan to talk about some content and data management changes. Jordan?
All right, let's get into it. So for those of you who are using distributed collaboration to share content between organizations, sharing ArcGIS Experience Builder apps and templates is now supported. If you configure web maps for offline use, you are now able to select a tile package item from your organization to use as the base map. So now you don't have to load the tile package to all the devices that will take the map offline. And if you create a snapshot when publishing a feature layer from Cloud Data Warehouse data, you can refresh the snapshot from the layers item page. Moving into some hosted feature layer updates, you can now swap a hosted feature layer view's source layer to update the data without disrupting use of the view. You can now also enable an option to keep track of any changes made to your data. So this includes adding, updating, and deleting features. Continuing with hosted feature layer updates, if you make changes to the field properties of hosted feature layer views, there is a reset to source option that allows you to revert the field settings to that of its source. You are now also able to add a GeoJSON file from the web as an item or publish a hosted feature layer from a GeoJSON file on the web by providing a URL. We have a couple of book publishing updates. So when you publish layers in bulk from a data store item, you can define the time zone for the date and time fields. And for layers that you have published in bulk from a previous release, you can synchronize the web layers with their source data to define the time zones. Custom data feeds are new at 11.1 and will allow you to create feature services from any data source that you choose. Data can stay in its data source while ArcGIS Enterprise reads it and writes it to a read-only, non-editable feature service. And John has prepared a demonstration for us so we can get a look at what this looks like.
All right, Elle. Let's kick it up here a notch. Perfect. Let's take a look at how we can leverage custom data feeds to display open data located on Connecticut's Open Data Portal. The SNAP Authorized Retailers is a data set up that is updated daily to display the most up-to-date information on SNAP compliant stores. It is served through SODA API, a common standard for open data access. Our objective is to access this data in ArcGIS Enterprise without downloading and re-uploading the data as a local copy with an organization, and to keep a live link to that data once the publish is completed. We will start by creating a custom data provider on the development machine. I've already installed Node.js runtime along with the ArcGIS Enterprise SDK. We will validate both by running the CDF command with the .h flag. Before we can create a custom data provider, we need to create a custom data app by running the create app snap app command. Snap app is going to be our container here. That can be any name. Once the command runs, an app is created that can house our custom data provider for this specific service. Once created, we can navigate into the snap app directory and run the create provider command to create a custom data provider, snap. Once this runs successfully, we now need to write our model code. So using an ID of your choice, we're going to use Visual Studio here. Navigate to your providers folder, and we're going to select model.js. I'm going to add a pre-written custom data provider to save us some time for the rest of the session. I've also taken the liberty of adding appropriate dependencies to ensure that this code will actually work. And I've configured the provider properties within the cdconfig.json file. Let me quickly walk you through what this code does. First, we need to construct an API call that will then make a request to the remote API. It will check to make sure that the response is a valid JSON file that we can use to display the layer in ArcGIS Enterprise. Once we're done coding, we need to test the data provider itself. We can do this through command line. Access the custom data app and launch npm start. This will start the custom data app. Once started, we can ping the app locally through any web browser. By accessing a localhost URL over port 8080, we identify the custom data provider snap and then input the open data host along with the host property. A valid custom data feed will return the information located in the custom data provider formatted as a feature service. Our last step on the dev machine is to export the data provider as a packaged file so that we can register it with ArcGIS Enterprise. We do this by terminating the custom data app and running the cdf export snap command. This command packages all the data code and places it within the root of the app folder. And that's step one done. Step two, we're going to register the custom data provider in ArcGIS Enterprise. Start by navigating to the ArcGIS server admin and then into the uploads location. Choose the CDPK file we created from the previous step. And once we locate that here, we are going to select upload. Once this is uploaded, ArcGIS server will generate an item ID that we need to copy. Take a note of this, put it into a OneNote or a notepad. Proceed to the services endpoint in the admin API and select types. Oh, we're going to actually register this, I apologize. And then we're going to register this at the custom data providers register directory within types. There we go. Make sure we're using that proper ID. Once this completes, we'll get a screen here that shows that we have uploaded a snap.cdpk file to this endpoint. Step three will be to create a read-only feature service. We're going to go back to services and select create service and use a standard feature service JSON file. The only things we're going to really change about this standard file are the name. So the service name will be snap, the type will be feature service, the provider is custom data, and we're going to ensure that the JSON properties match the custom data provider. Then, once we've confirmed all of this is above board, we're going to select create. Which will create the feature service. So last step, let's use this. The service directory now has the snap service we created earlier, and this service can be queried and examined at rest, but can also be consumed through ArcGIS Pro, Map Viewer, and Field Maps. For the sake of testing, we can render this in the Map Viewer. So we'll copy this, go on to Map Viewer, and show that the data works. Since the custom data feed is referencing the source data set, we will see the most up-to-date information whenever we click on any of these features. So essentially, we are seeing a live view of the custom data, the open data API site from Connecticut. And whenever we query any of these features, we see the most up-to-date feature set, data set for this provider. Awesome. And that's custom data feeds. We're going to shift gears here and talk briefly about ArcGIS server roles. A lot of these folks are having their own sessions. We can answer some questions on these after, but if you have specific questions, it may be best to go see them at the showcase. So what we'll do is we'll talk a bit about what each of these server roles does and then the updates to those server roles. Let's get started. Starting with GeoEvent. GeoEvent enables you to take live data streams or data sets within the World Wide Web and display them in ArcGIS Enterprise or process them in some way. Common use cases here are to display live data sets on a stream service or throw it into a spatiotemporal big data store, or even update feature services live as this data comes in. So GeoEvent has received a bunch of performance upgrades and improvements that really take down the load time of the GeoEvent manager. There's a new plugin for installing custom processors and connectors from the GeoEvent server gallery, really allowing you to administer those a bit easier. And the ability to edit the configuration store and gateway directories in GeoEvent Manager makes taking backups of GeoEvent so much easier, as GeoEvent users can definitely relate to. Image Server is something else that received a lot of good upgrades, and Image Server is something that we use to process imagery within ArcGIS Enterprise. And not only just process within ArcGIS Enterprise, but if you are using ArcGIS Pro and you would like to offload that workflow from ArcGIS Pro, you can set up an image server to be your raster processor on your ArcGIS Enterprise, and as long as Pro is hooked up to that ArcGIS Enterprise, you can offload that work and have image server do the work for you, so you can actually use your machine while processing these things. So a few enhancements here. The Create Imagery Layer Wizard now supports additional raster types as input. The Classify Raster function tool also supports the Esri classifier definition file and .ecd file, which helps you standardize your classifications across your deployment. And last but not least, Deep Learning Studio was enhanced with 3 key features that help create training models a lot easier. So add and remove custom work units, batch update and delete actions for work units and training samples, and hierarchy and label schema support for collecting, editing, and reviewing training samples. Moving on to knowledge, ArcGIS Knowledge Server brings the power of graph stores into ArcGIS Enterprise. This is very powerful if you would like to understand different types of relationships with non-geographic and geographic data alike. ArcGIS Knowledge Server now supports user-managed graph stores through the Neo4j databases, and it enables users to bring their own infrastructure to bear rather than relying on our own graph store that you can install with ArcGIS Data Store. New capabilities are also available in ArcGIS Pro to analyze and query knowledge graphs in an investigation, link chart, map, and search and filter pane. Changing tracks to Notebook Server. Notebook Server lets users use Jupyter Notebooks completely within ArcGIS Enterprise. This adds a tab to the gallery at the very top that will let you launch a notebook and actually create notebooks to process data or do complex workflows. This is really significant because you can use this to administer ArcGIS Enterprise and do actual work within the data sets and do data management through this as well, and do it in a way that is very repetitive or has a good repeat potential, if you will, unless you build documentation within the workflow. So at 11.0, we introduced the ability to publish notebooks as web tools. And you can hook those up to webhooks and use those as a way to, if a webhook fires off, launch a very complicated response to an automatic event. So going back to earlier the session, we talked about how we're trying to decentralize a lot of the admin workflows in ArcGIS Enterprise. So the Run Web Tool privilege enables creator level users or higher to run notebooks published as web tools without needing any extra notebook licensing enabled onto that user. This really does a lot with allowing anybody to run notebook-based web tools completely on their own without needing any higher level permissions. Moving right along to Workflow Manager, the last server role of this presentation. This Workflow Manager enables you to, it was featured very heavily in the plenary, I'm sure y'all have seen this, but more or less it is how you can manage very standardized workflows throughout ArcGIS Enterprise through a variety of tasks and flows. The new advanced role adds the following ways to manage work. View job history tracks all changes occurring within a job. Web requests can be used with job activities to send web requests to REST endpoints. Extract changes as output values for use with features, service, webhooks when a job is created. And job force stop privilege can allow you to cancel a step being run by another user in case something gets bogged down. Step template enhancements, you can run the ArcGIS Pro command in basically open a Pro project directly from a Workflow Manager flow. Set job version is a new step that allows you to set an existing branch version data source as the job's current version. And the send web request step now offers a federated token authorization option to call endpoints within ArcGIS within your enterprise environment without having to authenticate over and over again. And last but not least, the editable checkbox has been added to update one-to-many job properties and update job property steps to allow values to be edited when the step is run. All right, Jordan, can you talk to us about some application updates?
All right, yes, thanks. Starting with Instant Apps, a suggestion panel that helps you choose an app now appears by default. And the homepage now also offers a Choose Map option that allows you to choose a map or scene to preview the app before you create them. When you turn on the social sharing setting, the link now includes parameters that preserve the current appearance of an app, such as the map extent and any visible layers, so users are able to share what they see. There are also new theme settings available in most of the templates. These include multiple size options for adding a logo to the header and the ability to use one font for the header and another for the other text elements throughout. So many updates were made to the various Instant App templates, so we're just going to cover a few of the highlights. Users of your app can now export records as a CSV file when you include the attribute table in the layer list settings. For the templates that include the measurement tool, users will be able to find and convert coordinates. In Media Map, there is a new tool that allows users to magnify a portion of the map. In Countdown, you can include a play button that allows users to cycle through lists without requiring, cycle through all the countdown and leaderboard lists without requiring additional interaction. Chart Viewer now has a map selection tool to show chart selections that correspond with features selected in the map. Moving into ArcGIS dashboards, you can enable list search, which allows dashboard viewers to quickly find list items. Data download can be enabled for data-driven elements, and you can allow users to reset the dashboard after they interact with it. And I'll hand it over to John to talk about ArcGIS Monitor 2023.
Thanks so much, Jordan. So ArcGIS Monitor 2023 has two sessions that I would love for you all to attend if possible. One did happen yesterday. I think there is a recording available to take a look at that after proceedings are over. But the operational scenarios workshop is coming up tomorrow, so please, please, please go take a look at this. ArcGIS Monitor has been completely reworked and re-architected to be a brand new application. We were releasing ArcGIS Monitor on cadence with ArcGIS Enterprise up until 10.8.1, and then a decision was made to recreate it to make it a bit more modern. So ArcGIS Monitor 2023, which is out now, I think it's 2023.2 at their current release, is a lot more modern feeling. If you're used to the portal organization settings page, it looks a lot like that and really opens up the product and it makes it a lot easier to install, and anyone can and should use this to monitor ArcGIS Enterprise. Monitor at this release can monitor more than one version of ArcGIS Enterprise, and it is supported to be used with all currently supported versions of ArcGIS Enterprise. which I believe right now is 10.6.1, is the oldest we support.
Not sure.
Yeah, so any currently supported version of ArcGIS Enterprise can be used at Monitor. Definitely use this. It's been really cool to see it being developed, and through technical support, this is definitely a tool we use often to help our customers troubleshoot specific issues. We're going to talk briefly about ArcGIS Enterprise on Kubernetes. Who have their own session, absolutely go there if that is something you're interested in, and they also have a presence at the showcase, but I would be remiss to not talk about it just a little bit within the What's New session. The big theme for ArcGIS Enterprise and Kubernetes is bringing the power of image server to Kubernetes. Image services are uniquely positioned to really take advantage of the Kubernetes software architecture. Containerized image services are available in ArcGIS Enterprise on Kubernetes through the subscription license. You can manage, process, and serve image services through ArcGIS Enterprise and Kubernetes. The What's New blog is right there. Take a picture of that if you'd like to learn more. Give it a second there for y'all to have a chance to do that. Awesome. And there are some exciting early adopter features coming. So cloud native data object store options will be supported as an early adopter project. You will need to contact your account manager if you'd like to be a part of this. And something we've been hearing a lot about from our users is, when are y'all going to support Rancher? So it is going to be possible to explore that type of deployment option here within 11.1 as an early adopter program. That will be the 5th supported Kubernetes implementation. We're going to wrap this session up with just a further resource call. I'd like to highlight these every time I have this conversation with y'all, have this presentation, if you will. So we have 2 primary ways of learning about what's new and what's coming in ArcGIS Enterprise. Whenever we release an ArcGIS Enterprise version, we like to write up a blog about what's coming, what's going, available to you all on the ArcGIS blog site. And there's also Esri community. I know myself personally, a lot of the product managers, product engineers, product development are very active on Esri community, and we'd love to have a conversation with you there. There have been quite a few things that we were made aware of on community that we wouldn't have been made aware of otherwise. So through our conversations there, it is very helpful for us to gauge what our users actually need of our software and implement those through ideas, through community, through conversations like the ones we're having at Showcase that really help us gauge what we need to be doing and the directions we need to be taking. Last but not least, we also have something called Esri Media Space. This is our video provider. We have what's new content out there, so feel free to access that and take a look at the resources we have there. And I believe that is it. If you have feedback, please share it within the app. We will start taking a look at some questions here. And any questions for us, feel free to drop them into Pigeonhole, into the Events app, and we'll start going through them.
All right. So apart from migrating ArcMap runtime services to ArcGIS Pro Runtime, what effort is required to upgrade from 10.8.1 to 11.1?
So great question. I think this is one of those it depends questions depending on how you have it deployed. Upgrading is absolutely a very hot topic for enterprise, and 10.8.1 is a very viable version to upgrade to 11.1. And really, there are a lot of app retirements and template retirements that happen at 10.9.1 going to 11.0. So if you're using configurable app templates, if you're using some retired functionality in certain apps, there will be considerations you have to make beyond the ArcMap-based service retirement. There's an excellent blog that goes into this. It's written by Jill Edstrom. It's called Before Turning to 11. Here are some steps you can do along those lines. That actually does a really good job explaining exactly what apps are being retired and what you all should consider doing before going there. A very common thing we like to tell our customers is before going to any of the 11.x versions, go to 10.9.1 first. And that's because in that release, we have this incident of a lot of retired apps or deprecated apps existing with their replacements. And you are able to, in some cases, migrate that content to the new application. In other cases, have 2 things open at the same time and recreate them throughout in ArcGIS Enterprise before going to the 11 releases. Great question.
All right, so we have a clarifying question on custom data feeds.
Sure.
So instead of registering the data, you register the provider?
Correct. Yes, you're never actually registering the data to ArcGIS Enterprise, and that's kind of the beauty of it. You're still referencing the source data. So whatever updates your provider makes to that data, you're seeing that data. But we have to format that data in such a way that ArcGIS Enterprise can understand it, which is what that entire coding part was about.
And they had a follow-up question as well. Does a registered custom data feed appear as an item in Portal?
Not as a content item, but it is a custom data feed item that can be found within that REST endpoint of ArcGIS Server. It is an object of ArcGIS Server. The read-only feature service will show up as a regular feature service in Portal content, though.
I am keen to allow our enterprise users to use multidimensional image services. I want them to be able to choose from the different dimensions and time slices, just like I can. What are the options? So yeah, users can choose to display specific time slices in the 11.1 map viewer, if that is your question. Let's see. Can you publish a tabular data service yet?
I don't believe so. So just publishing tables. As hosted features you can, but I'll need to verify that. So whoever asked that question, meet me up front, and we'll get the contact information going, and I'll confirm that for you.
Can you update to 11.1 without a full reinstall? I delivered as an update.
A full reinstall. So I think the question is, can you just put something on top of an existing deployment without reinstalling it? So Kubernetes, yes. Windows, Linux, no. Kubernetes is one of those things that lets you run an upgrade and it will go through the entire deployment while it's still running and upgrade each pod and container individually. With Windows and Linux, we do still rely on a traditional update method that relies on essentially putting down new files and taking out old files. So yeah, good question.
Can existing ArcGIS Online organization groups and members be imported to Enterprise?
I do not believe so, no.
Okay. Let's see if there's any new questions. What was the name of the 11 upgrade blog again? Do you remember?
Going to validate. Can you look up turning up to 11 on the browser? I'll give the full name here.
Yeah.
Blog. ArcGIS blog.
Oh my god. Yeah.
You're good. We can only get so many Spinal Tap references in these blogs before it starts getting a little bit ridiculous to try and find them there. Consider ArcGIS Enterprise 10.9.1 until you are ready to turn it up to 11 is the name of the blog.
All right. If you are at 10.9, should you still upgrade to 10.9.1 before 11.1?
100%, yes, if possible, because that is I don't believe 10.9 had conditional ArcMap-based runtime service. So at 10.9.1, you could actually install 10.9.1 without the ArcMap-based service runtime. At 10.9.1, you could actually convert all of your services to the pro-based service runtime and then delete the ArcMap-based service runtime to check to make sure you've done all that work. So I would encourage that, wholly. If you are able to, I would do that.
Will it be possible to have hybrid installations? Some Kubernetes features are interesting, but we wanted to keep our on-prem installation.
We actually recommend this. Our Enterprise in Kubernetes is positioned to do a certain set of jobs and certain set of features depending on your organization's needs. I believe the current sentiment is that you have your base deployment that runs whatever you need to run, while Enterprise in Kubernetes is used to specifically take advantage of the rapid scaling of feature services to really be able to serve that data out and scale your different types of resources based on demand for feature services that really get a wide variety of traffic throughout the day. So I believe, yes, the answer to that question. Do we recommend a hybrid approach? Absolutely.
Is Chef still in the Esri roadmap for continued use in automating ArcGIS Enterprise? There are no sessions on Chef this year.
Yeah, 100%. Chef is not going away. Yeah.
Let's see. Do you know of any in-depth tutorials on how to develop webhooks, including how the notifications are received by the portal admin?
There actually is a session by Sean McGinnis and Sarah Maisel relating to ArcGIS for Power Automate and webhooks. It is more online based, but the theme and the core concepts of it are applicable to enterprise. I would 100% check out that session if you are able. That goes into how to take in webhooks, use Power Automate to process them, and then do something with those webhooks. So not specifically for enterprise, but as a general concept, that will be a good way of getting the idea of how they work.
Should or can GitHub be used with ArcGIS portal applications?
It can be used. I might need more details on that question.
All right. And there were quite a few questions just regarding the future releases of Enterprise. So again, we encourage you to attend the Road Ahead session, which will be on Thursday, and those folks will be able to answer those types of questions for you.